Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient / survivor. Been dealing with cancer since early 2021, and I'm doing very, very well. I am absolutely excited today because I've got a really special guest who I think you're going to love. Just a long standing pioneer in cancer. He's been dealing with cancer for more years than I think anybody I've ever come across. And so his name was Michael Permack. And so what I'd like to do, let's get into this because there's a lot we would like to discuss. Michael, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we're
Sure.
going to start at the beginning of the journey.
First of all, I want to thank you, Mark, for inviting me on this YouTube cast. I don't know what you call it, but I'm really grateful. And I've just met Mark recently, and he's a real deal. So he's very trustworthy. So when he says to his audience, I would listen to. Anyway, my name's Michael Permack. I am a 31-year brain tumor survivor. I am a father with 3 kids, and I have a wife that I've been married to for 37 years, going on 38. And I've had an incredible journey through that cancer experience, through my cancer experience, because at 29, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I remember the doctor walking down the hall, and I could see the dour look on his face. Something was wrong. And then he said, "Great news." I said, "Oh, I thought that was like a reverse for me. I thought it was going to be bad news." He said, "Great news. You have a benign brain tumor, and you have 2 years to live." So I said, "What's great news about that?" Like that's pretty brutal. And in that instant, in that moment, I can remember like yesterday, I dropped God. And at the same moment, I said, "I'm going to walk my daughter down the aisle," who was 3 at the time. So that was my introduction to cancer.
How did it come to be that you found out you had the brain tumor and all that? Were you having headaches? What were the symptoms?
It was rapid onset. I was in a car driving with a colleague, and it felt like Spider-Man had put webbing over my mouth. I couldn't talk for like 1 minute. He was going, like that. And I couldn't talk for a minute. And my colleague didn't say anything. It was really strange because we were driving to a business meeting. And then all of a sudden, my speech came back. And I went, "Wow, that was weird." It was a weird moment. So I got into the meetings with, and I was working for PepsiCo at the time. And we were having a meeting, with senior management. And I said, "I don't feel that good." Well, I was feeling crappy in the meeting. And then I went back to my hotel room. And funny enough, there's a kind of a funny and not funny, but I called for a cab outside the hotel we were staying at. And I said, "Drive me to the hospital. I'm not feeling good." And the cab driver said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure. I need to go." And it was right across the street, the hospital. That's why I didn't even know. That's how I was having a seizure. And
Wow.
when I went into the hospital, they thought I was on drugs because I couldn't remember my wife's name. I couldn't remember my phone numbers, couldn't remember my kids' names. I couldn't remember why I was in Edmonton, Alberta. I lived in Calgary. I couldn't remember anything. So Edmonton is pretty cold in the winter. So what they did is they shoved me, because they thought I was on drugs. They shoved me by the doors to sober me up. And thankfully, at some point, a colleague walked in and said, "He's not on drugs. What are you talking about?" So that saved. So they took my situation seriously, and within a week I had an MRI, and that's when he gave me the news.
Why did it take so long to get the MRI? It seems like they do it like
Uh,
immediately.
yeah, well, this is Canada. I think that's part of it. Is that they only had so many MRIs at that time. It was
Hmm.
not new technology, but fairly new for Canada. And what they thought I had was a stroke. For some reason, they thought I had a stroke because I wasn't speaking that clearly. So I had all these other tests, and the doctors were trying to figure out what's wrong with me, and they said, "Well, you can go home now." And thankfully, I had an advocate, which is um, one, I guess, my biggest points is you need an advocate when you're going to doctor's appointments. Don't go alone. Because my wife heard something different than I heard, and that's been a regular occurrence. And so she said, no, he needs an MRI because it didn't show up on a CT scan because it was benign, and benign brain tumors don't show up on CT scans. So
Huh.
that's they may now. I'm not sure that the technology is involved, but at that time, that's what happened. So they ruled out brain tumor right away. Um, like within 3 hours of that guy coming to pick me up at the hospital or telling people about myself at the hospital. They did a CT right away, but yeah, so they said go home, and must have been something crazy. Well, my wife advocated for me to get an MRI the next morning, and I remember it was Thursday morning, and she said he's going in for an MRI at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not taking no for an answer. So I went, I had the results the same day.
Wow. Uh, How has she supported you throughout your whole journey? Has she
Wow.
been a tremendous asset to your journey? Talk about that, please.
So we, in the first 2 years of the experience, I I was hard to deal with. I isolated, and now I know, like it's obvious now, right? That um, prisoners are put into solitary as the biggest form of punishment.
Hmm.
So I chose isolation as a way of keeping myself safe. But I said to my wife at one point I don't know when, maybe after 3 months, I said, hey, I'm an MBA. I've analyzed the situation. I know it perfectly. What I'm going to do is leave the family, go die on my own, and then you can remarry and you won't have to see me die. And she said, are you crazy? And there's times when we've been the biggest supports to each other because she had breast cancer in 2000. So I was diagnosed in 1993, and she had breast cancer and reconstructive surgery in 2002. So it's like any marriage, it's been ups and down, but she's a powerhouse. So when push comes to shove, she's somebody you want on your side.
That's awesome. That is incredible. I I can't imagine anyone saying, "Wow, that's really, really powerful," what just happened, what you just said. I mean, I haven't heard that from anybody I've met at all, and
Mm.
wow, that
Well,
is
one of the
amazing.
things that she suffered with me was I'm such a long-term cancer survivor, which is great. Like I'm no problem there. But I'm so blessed. But I was going for scans every 6 months, thinking thinking I might die. So like, and I stopped telling people I was going for scans. I just stopped telling them because I didn't want to worry anybody. But what that did for me by not being open and not connecting with my feelings with people, it was a big sign of PTSD. So I didn't know, but until September, no, September of last year, somebody said, I think you have PTSD. So 30 years into it, because it was so slow grinding, right? But so one of the things that happened between my wife and I is that she would say, I'm not present. And I would say, I'm present. What are you talking about? But I wasn't, and I couldn't have been because of PTSD. I just, it was not my fault. It wasn't her fault for complaining about it. It was just, we didn't know. So now we're reconnecting.
I've been
Got
hearing
a lecture on that.
more and more stories about post cancer PTSD situations, which is just I mean, it's something that is very, very serious, and it needs to be addressed, and it can't be swept under the rug because uh, you know, there's a lot of things with cancer that have lingering effects. For instance, neuropathy and things from chemo and chemo brain and all these other things, but nobody talks about the mental aspect of it, the PTSD portion, which
Well, I
needs
couldn't agree
need,
more. I couldn't agree more.
needs
And if you think so, I have a war vet I met, and he's like me. He came back from Desert Storm, and 30 years later, he's suffering from PTSD. So the way he described it to me is the first time he shot somebody, it flipped a switch in him. And so the first time I was told I had cancer, I've been told that 2 times. Um, it flips a switch. And I don't think the feelings of that are much different. Not in all circumstances, everybody's unique, but I think there's a preponderance of the evidence that would say 80% of people, for sure. I'm going to talk about males. I don't know about females because I can't talk about females, but I have talked to so many male cancer survivors. And our experience is common, and so are veterans, and so are addicts, believe it or not. So that's something I've discovered over time. It wasn't, but one of the things I want for people to hear is Mark has said it. You should be checked for PTSD. Why wouldn't you be checked? Your mortality was just threatened. Of course, it's going to be traumatic. And for somebody like me who lived so long, and I was normal, but now I can tell you that I'm more clear than ever. Thank God. Thank God, my friend told me that.
that is phenomenal. I think in my personal situation, what has helped me is this very channel. I just wanted to help, when I started my YouTube channel, To Be Your Own Hero, I just wanted to help one person. That was my goal. I want to help one
Yeah.
person. And like a couple of hundred videos plus, uh, which I've done to date. I post every single week, and I have not missed since I started this channel. But
Well, I have to tell you, so what you're doing is what I believe. I believe at the end of the day, will help. So women talk to each other. I'm not talking about pediatric cancer. This is not a pediatric cancer conversation. I've never been the parent of a thankfully, of a child who's had cancer. My child has CP, so which is cerebral palsy. So I know the pain the parents go through when their child is sick. So I can relate to that, but I can't relate to cancer. But what I can say in let me just tell you a story. So at 55, I finally figured out, and I was diagnosed at 29. At 55, I finally came to me an epiphany that I could die from something else, not brain cancer. That was a real epiphany. So I said, I better start planning for retirement. Like I never thought about it. Like it wasn't even on my radar. Um, and then somebody, a friend of ours from the family, said, I'm not giving you a choice. I'm sending you to a conference that I've been to. I've paid for you to go, and I need you to show up in Oakland on this such and such a date. This is 2019, and you can't say no. I said, okay, and actually my son and I went together, so it was really cool. And I'm just picturing the room. So there's 180 men in this room. And it was the first time I didn't feel alone in, well, I guess 25, 26 years. Like because you even though you're with people, you're alone in your own mind, and you're thinking your story is so unique and you have it. So not that I was a victim, but because I somewhat victim, but it was more I didn't have anybody to talk to, right? And so it's funny. So 180 men in there, and I would say if I was on balance, 160 of them had worse problems than me. And that's when I've learned the power of connection. So what you're doing in connecting people to people like me, right, is the second part of what I discovered has helped me move forward and have hope. And that's, you're actually providing a service. You're a living example of somebody connecting people to others through service, because we're both doing a service right now, and we both love what we do right here, I'm sure. And the dividend is hope for both of us. It's a win-win, because we both get dopamine hits when we're doing this. Like, we're trying to help people, right? So I think that's the formula for healing. That's the formula. There's one small asterisk. When you're serving somebody, I think, in my view, my friend who gives me shit all the time, I told you the men's group that I go to, he does it harshly, but he does it with kindness. And when people are kind, it's a payment to them, because when you're kind, all types of chemicals are released, good chemicals, and you're a walking example of being kind.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, well, it's a pleasure. That's true.
Getting back to the story that I was saying when I was talking about my channel, I started interviewing, all different kinds of people. When I first started my channel, I would just go on and talk, and I talk about different subjects like positive attitude and gratitude and all of that. But then I thought, man, I've really got to expand. So I started interviewing people, and the goal of my channel was just help one person. But the amazing thing to me, and I'm amazed to this very day, is the one person that helps the most is me. And because it's just it's inexplicable. You can't explain what it actually does when you're trying to, you're putting on an effort, you're making time, trying to help somebody out there that you don't even know. The way it comes back to you, it's just remarkable. And so
Yeah,
yeah, I am
there's a
so
lot of parallels. So so my son is an addict. Okay, he's 6 years clean. I've watched him in recovery. He is he is dedicated to his recovery. I can tell you. Um, it wasn't easy for him. It just wasn't. Um, so I asked him recently. So when you were in addiction, did you feel isolated, shame, all the feelings that I had during my cancer experience? And he goes, yes. So that's why there's sponsorship in addiction. Yeah, to work addicts through the 12 steps. That is a relationship so that's what I think is needed in the cancer community. I'm not saying that cancer is the same as addiction. I'm not saying that at all. But the principle of helping somebody who has cancer um, gives you it's a win-win, right? You don't do it for the accolades. Like, what accolades? Yeah, I'm not doing it for accolades. If people, I guess, we talked earlier before the interview that sometimes people don't listen about, to our experiences, and we're trying to help them. I still get benefit even if they don't listen.
Mhm.
Um, I don't control those people, but I control what I do and how I'm attempting my intent to make people feel better than when they met me. So that's my intent. It sometimes take time.
Michael, at this point, I'd like to ask you, would you be interested in shooting a part two of our interview? Because I think we have so much more to discuss and so much more that with your journey, with your long journey, you have so many more things that I think you'd like to share. Would you like to come back?
Of course. Yeah, of course. And um, I just I'm really grateful, Mark, to have met you. I just wanted to let you know. And in case you don't know, Mark hosts um, a meeting every Monday. So uh, just look, Mark will put the notes in I guess the YouTube notes, however that happens.
The
Um,
description.
yeah, description. And there's not many people like Mark who are going out to change the world. So good on him. Good on you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Uh, what would I have two final questions.
Yeah, sure. Of
The
course.
first question is, what message would you like to share with our audience right now about, up until this point in your journey, what have you learned? And I know that because your journey has been so long that you have learned so many more things, but up until this point to where we're talking about, what did you learn, or what suggestions would you have for people uh, up until this point?
Well, I talked about connections and service to recover. That's one. Number two is when you're first diagnosed, I think it's very, very natural to ask how long you have. I asked, and my brother, who was a doctor, happened to he came out to be with me in Edmonton when I was diagnosed. He lived in Winnipeg. Um, and when in our hotel room after I had the diagnosis, I said, so what do you think is going to happen to my brother? He's a doctor, and he said, he looked at my wife and he said, you are not going to grow old with him. So even my brother, who's a doctor, did not fathom that it was possible for me to live long term. So what I would say is, I want you in your own mind to imagine that once you're diagnosed, let's say it's with brain cancer for me, you're on a bell curve of brain cancer. Now, the bell curve can be like, small or wide or whatever, but you're somewhere on the bell curve. And until you die, you're still on that bell curve. And nobody, the doctors don't know. They just don't know. And I'm a prime example. So my point is that if they tell you 2 years, that's a guess. Only God knows. Only God knows. And so that threw me for a loop, and I was stuck for 4 years before I got out of it. And the way I got out of it, because I went to so many psychologists, but I found one finally that challenged me to say, he was bawling his brains out when he was telling me this. He says, Michael, I got it. I got it. And he said, you have to act like you're going to live or you're going to die, and it's your choice. And he was slobbering, and we all were bawling. My wife was there, we're all bawling. And he goes, what are you going to choose? And so I said, well, why would I choose to act like I'm going to die? And he goes, well, you've chosen it so far. So how can we help you make a different choice? I said, I don't need help. I'm, it was so, I don't know, such a revelation. Like, I can't explain to you, but in that moment, remember, I don't know if you they'll recall that I said I dropped God when I was first diagnosed, but I've had certain God moments, and that was one of them. For sure, for sure.
I've got to say, out of the tons of interviews that I've done, that was one of the most profound answers that I've ever heard. And so thank you
Wow.
for that, because that was a gift right there. I mean, that was wow, amazing. I have one last question
Sure,
for
sure,
you.
of course, of
One
course.
last question. It's like it's. I hope it doesn't throw you.
No, nothing. After brain cancer, it's hard to throw me.
How would you, Michael, if you had the power, how would you make this world a better place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to give a two-part answer, if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
The first part of the answer is, I look at the resources that are being channeled towards various, global activities, and child poverty, is like really sad. Like, I don't know, it's worse than what I had, right? But when COVID hit and we jumped to the pump and we just dived on COVID, and then we created something so great, right? Like people were saved by the vaccine, anti-vaxxer, doesn't matter what you did, but a lot of people were saved. So I'd like that same effort to be put into cancer, that same urgency, because this year alone, 2.2 million people will be diagnosed in North America. I think that's, if I get my numbers right, it's either 2,000 or 4,000 people a day. And the medical system and it's ramping up like a exponentially. So the medical system can't handle it. Now, I'm not saying there aren't externalities, like there's other great causes. Um, but I'd like to put this at, I'd like cancer to be considered an epidemic.
It is.
Well, it is, but we don't act like it. Like
No, not at all.
COVID, we acted like it.
Mhm.
And that's not to take away from any other cause, because I know people are passionate about their causes. I want all the causes to do well, but I want to highlight that I believe this is an epidemic. I believe younger and younger people are getting cancer for whatever their reasons, doesn't matter why. And there's 202 cancers, so it's not going to be easy. So I just think that more attention should be put towards the epidemic, and more resources, and whatever it takes, as long as it takes. I was told that by a good coach. And the other thing that I would change is that I know this sounds trite, but you don't know what's going on with another person. You never know. You just never know. That's the Instagram, and all that stuff makes it look so great. But I can tell you that every single person you see on there has some form of shit in their lives. So if we could, as a collective society, be more kind, more accepting, more generous, um, I can tell you that the 180 men in that room would really appreciate it. And I'm not making it men focused, but that was one of the things they talked about is what would change the world would be random acts of kindness. And I don't think that's a unique statement, but we don't practice it as much as we can.
Absolutely agree. Michael, thank you so much for
You're
your
welcome.
wisdom and for sharing this time with our audience. And we look forward to having you back for part two. Uh, I am so thankful for you and your time. And I'd also like to thank everyone out there watching. Please subscribe to the channel, make a comment in the comment section. And I hope that each and every one of you has uh, an absolutely fantastic week. Life is so short. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of your time here and tell the people around you, that you want to tell that you love them. Don't hold back because you never know when your time is up and sometimes we have time and sometimes we don't. So everyone, please have a phenomenal week and we will see you back next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you so much.